Yo, what's up, nerds? It's MTG Man. So in the last video, I talked about how unsets and playtest cards are honestly just really close to modern design, and how there's always been some sort of strangeness to Magic. And I had mentioned before, what if there was some sort of format where uncards, playtest cards could be legal, right? If we were to just look over every card, what card could be legal in that set? So that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna look through the cards from the original unset, fucking unglued. It's I almost said unstable. I started with unstable, but yeah. So I'm gonna look through. I'm gonna tell you what I think could be legal in a format like that. I haven't really decided if that sort of format would be a commander-like format because that's what I specialize in, or it could just be like a 60 card one-off format because I think that would be interesting, but we'll see. Um, so first up is Blacker Lotus. You tear it into pieces, add 4 mana of any color, and remove the pieces from the game. I think this is interesting because it could be legal. It doesn't do anything directly that game breaking, except for the fact that it would have to be banned pretty much immediately because yeah, it's just really fucking good. If Jeweled Lotus is too good for Commander, Blacker Lotus is even better. Um, Here's the thing. Shout out Horticulturalist. Um, Adding 4 mana is really good. So while this doesn't break the gameplay loop in any way, this doesn't make you like, hit your opponent over the head with a shovel, which if I remember correctly was a planned card for an unset. While it doesn't do anything like that, um, it just would be too powerful. So I think it would be legal and then immediately banned. Big Furry Monster, as I mentioned, so you have to put it together. So it can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. When it leaves the battlefield, you sacrifice the other half. But it's a what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 15 black pip creature where you have to have both halves of it. And they get cast at once. And sure, it's a 99.99. That's crazy, but you have to cast it from your hand because there's no way to reanimate this. So the way I see it, um, it's pretty, I would say pretty fair because you just have to have both. Um, sure, there is some, interesting deck building you can do. If this is a commander-like format, I had started on a deck that would use Marilyn the Morn Song, where at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player loses 3 life and searches their library for a card instead, so that you could search your library for BFM. But even then, you need 15 black mana, so you better have, like, what, like, Cabal Coffers, and then 7 or 8 Swamps? Either way, you're fucked. Ashnod's Coupon, you sacrifice it, target player gets you target drink. You pay any cost for the drink. I think this would be funny because you could play a graveyard like an artifact reanimator deck, um, where if you're rich enough, you stall out the clock by making your opponent repeatedly like buy you Dr. Pepper or something, and I think that would be really funny. But the fact that it involves a player like walking away from the table, basically, I think we'd need to ban it. I don't think this could be legal. Forests, swamps, mountains. I think we should ban all of those. The cheese stand alone. So the cheese stands alone is interesting because currently there is Barren Glory question mark where Barren Glory has the exact same ability as the cheese stands alone. You can go at the beginning of your upkeep if you control no permanents other than Barren Glory and have no cards in hand, you win the game. And it's exactly the same with the cheese stands alone. So, cheese stands alone could just be legal. Ugh, I'm like congested. Jack in the Mox. You roll a 6-sided die. This ability has the indicated effect. So on a 1, you sack it and lose 5 life. And then a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you add 1 mana of the indicated color. I think Jack in the Mox could be fair, honestly, because sure, it's adding you mana, but there's also the chance you have to sacrifice it. At the same time, like, I think this is about Soul Ring level of power, so I think it's fine. Um, Whenever Clanbassador deals damage to a player, choose an artifact, creature, or land you control. That player gains control of that permanent. This is perfectly fine. This could be legal today. So I think Clanbassadors is fine. I think there's, like an interesting strategy you could do here with giving your opponent shit you don't want. Goblin token, Soldier token, Infernal Spawn of Evil. So it's a 9 mana 7/7. You can pay 1 to black, reveal it from your hand, say it's coming, and it deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Activate only during your upkeep and only once each turn. I think this is fine. I don't see any reason for this to not be legal. We have. It's a Elder Dinosaur. Was in. I'll just go Ixalan. So we go into Ixalan. It is. Was it not in Ixalan? Was it in Rivals of Ixalan? Dog White. Okay, it was in Rivals. We have Tetsamok Primal Death, where you reveal it from your hand, put a prey counter on target creature. I don't think putting a prey counter is really that different from dealing 1 damage. Plus, you can only do it once per turn. You can only do it during your upkeep. So I think Infernal Swan of Evil is pretty fair. Timmy Power Gamer. It's a 4 mana 1/1. You can put a creature card from your hand onto the field. And look at that, right? So, sure, you can put a creature from your hand into play, but it could be a little bit busted. I could see this card being very strong, because you could just consistently do that every turn and cheat out big threats. However, if this is a commander-like format, you're locked to mono green, and mono green is pretty stompy as is, so I don't think this would really change shit up too much. I think this could be legal. Censorship enters, choose a word. When a player says the chosen word, censorship deals 2 damage to that player. This would be really good in the Mind Skinner, and I think this could be fair. All right, I do think it would be annoying, but if I don't think this is really going to be any more annoying than pay the 1, for fucking heuristic study. So I think this is fine. You choose the word the, or cast, say I cast, and you lose 2 life. Like, I think that's fair, especially since it's whenever a player, so your opponents can hit you with it too. I think censorship could be legal. Strategy Smattegy. You roll a 6-sided die, and it either does nothing, destroys all artifacts, destroys all lands, deals 3 damage to each creature and each player. Each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards, or you repeat the process twice. I think this could be fine. It's a bit chaotic, but it's a red board wipe, kind of. I think it would be legal, maybe a staple of some sort. It just seems pretty good. Cardboard Carapace. Enchant creature. For each other card named Cardboard Carapace you have with you outside the game, enchanted creature gets +1/+1. There's 2 ways to look at this, right? Because A, it would be annoying and expensive because decks that want Cardboard Carapace would be buying 100 copies. But B, also, we have cards that refer to things outside the game. We have Wish. Wish says that you choose a card you own from outside the game and put it into your hand. However, that's limited to your sideboard. So if we're saying this format has a sideboard, then at worst, Cardboard Carapace is a 6 mana aura that gives a creature +15/+15. And at that point, it's good, but no trample, nothing like that. I think it's just okay. I think really Cardboard Carapace would depend on how rules are defined, because if it's talking about sideboard, I think that's fine. If it's talking about you own outside the game in total, which it almost never is in a constructed format, I think that would be broken. But Burning Cinder Fury of Crimson Chaos Fire. Whenever a player taps a permanent, that player chooses one of their opponents. The chosen player gains control of that permanent at the beginning of the next end step. At the beginning of each player's end step, if that player didn't tap any non-land permanents, Burning Cinder Fury of Crimson Chaos Fire deals 3 damage to that player. Um, I think it's annoying, but I don't think it's really unfair. I mean, you have to give your opponents your shit, they have to give you their shit. At worst, you just don't tap anything, and it deals 3 damage to you. Which could be annoying in a 40 life format, because it could just be pass, 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 pass. But I just think it would be interesting. I'd say it's legal. Free for all. When it enters, exile all creatures face down. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, the player chooses a card exiled with free for all at random and puts it onto the battlefield. When free for all leaves the battlefield, put all cards exiled with it onto their owner's graveyard or into their owner's graveyards. Um, so here's the thing: it's a blue board wipe in a sense, where if you can destroy it after playing it, everything just goes to the graveyard instead. At worst, it shuffles up all creatures, but we have cards like, is it something auction? There's a couple cards. You know, we have Thieves Auction, which sets aside all cards in play, and then players choose a card and put that into play under their control. You know, there's Illicit Auction, you know, whatever. So really changing up control of creatures and shit isn't really that new, so I think that could be legal. Squirrel Farm, you reveal a card in your hand covering the artist credit. Target opponent guesses the artist. If they're wrong, you create a 1/1 squirrel. I guess this would have to be explained further, because we'd have to put in some sort of rule about you can't look up the artist. But I think at the same time, paying, 2 mana to create a 1/1, it's kind of meh. Like, well, no, it's pretty good. Sorry, that made me seem bad. It's pretty good. But I mean, if your opponent knows the artist, or even just after you reveal the card once, they'll know the artist at that point, I would assume. So then it's just a 1/1. I think it would be legal. We just have to, like, flesh out, the rulings on it. Chaos Confetti. Tear it into pieces, throw the pieces onto the battlefield from a distance of at least 5 feet, destroy each permanent that a piece touches, remove the pieces from the game. Here's the thing. Could be legal. I don't think that, paying 8 mana to destroy a bunch of shit is really that good. It's the whole tearing things up, but we're not playing in, like, a tournament setting, I'm assuming, so having one less card in your deck won't really matter. So I think it could be legal. It would suck replacing it every game, but it could be legal. Incoming, each player searches their library for any number of artifact, creature, enchantment, and or lands, puts them onto the battlefield, then shuffles. Okay, so you could play something like Notion Thief so that your opponents can't search their library. Then this becomes annoying. But other than that, because each player is doing it, I think it's fair. Mirror. Though I do have to note that you could bully a player by, like, you get your whole board of things. If you can give your board haste, somehow you full swing at that player, and then the next player full swings at that player, and then you just kind of bully one player out of the game, and then you're a little fucked. But even then, I don't think it's really that fair or unfair. Mirror. Enters tapped, sacrifice it, choose target player. At the beginning of the next end step, exchange life totals with that player, exchange control of all permanents you and that player control, and exchange cards in your hands, cards in your library, and cards in your graveyard. Basically, you just step across the table. We have, like, Emrakul the Promised End that lets you take control of a player, or, like, I think Mindslaver does that. So I think it would be fair, honestly. It's, like, a little strange, but you just become them. I think that's fine, be interesting to play, like, a really shitty deck and then just mirror. But even then, it's 7 mana, and then you have to survive another turn, and then you can use its ability. Mine. 4 green. When it enters, each player puts their libraries into their hand. Players have no maximum hand size and don't lose for drawing an empty library. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. When it leaves the battlefield, each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library. I think uh, it's complicated because I think if you build your deck around it, it's going to be a problem. Um, but then again, at the same time, each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. Kind of just like you just go back and forth, casting one spell, casting one spell, casting one spell. I think it could be annoying, but I don't really see it being unfair. So I would say it's legal. Misdemeanor. At the beginning of each other player's upkeep, you may compliment that player on their gameplay. If you don't sacrifice misdemeanor, um, so yeah, that's strange. However, just say like, "Wow, you're doing really good," or "You built this deck well," or whatever. And at that point, it's just a 4 mana 3/1 with first strike and flying. So it's not really good enough for that to matter anyway. So I think it could be legal. Look at me, I'm the DCI. Ban a card other than a basic land for the rest of the match. Um, this is interesting because it is 7 mana, so you'd play this game 1 to get rid of your opponent's like most important thing, and then you'd have to win the next 2 games. Honestly, I think it's fair. I think it's fine. Rock Lobster could just be legal. Psychic Network, each player plays with the top cards of the library held against their forehead, revealed to each other player. I think it's strange. It's like playing fucking headbands, but I think that's fine. I think it's legal. Um, Chicken a la King. Whenever a 6-sided die is rolled, put a +1/+1 counter on each bird. Tap an untapped bird you control, roll a 6-sided die. I think it could be legal. I think there's an interesting deck that could be built with this. So yeah, legalize it. I'm rubber, you're glue. When you speak in non-rhyming sentences, sacrifice it. You say, I'm rubber, you're glue, everything bounces off me and sticks to you. Change the target of target spell or ability that targets only you. I think we'd have to ban it, not because, well, partially because that ability is a little bit nuts, but also I think having to speak in rhyming sentences would take up too much gameplay. Not like gameplay, but like playtime, because if you can't think of a rhyming sentence, you could just sit there for like a minute thinking of one, just wasting time because you want to rhyme, because you want to keep, your ability to change the target of a target spell or ability that targets you. It just shuts down bolts, it shuts down, whatever's trying to hit you. So I think we'd have to ban it just for that. I mentioned in the last video, I think Goblin Tutor could just be legal. You roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 1, it has no effect. Otherwise, you search your library for either a card named Goblin Tutor, an enchantment, an artifact, a creature, or an instant or sorcery. Sure, it's a little bit busted. However, Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, I don't really see how this, it's a maybe better version of a regular tutor. However, you don't choose what you get. You could get a creature and you have a board full of creatures, but you really needed that kill spell. Or you could get an instant or sorcery and all you needed was one creature. Or it could just search for a card named Goblin Tutor, which if this is a 1-of format, then that doesn't matter. And it's basically a 1/3 chance to do nothing. So I think it could be legal. Jester's Sombrero, you sacrifice it, look at target player's sideboard, choose 3 cards from it, and remove those cards from the match. If we're saying this is a best of 3 format, and not like a commander format, I think this should be fine. It's the same as the banning a card thing where you play this, game 1. And sure, it could be a bit annoying, but your opponent just has to think about it going into a game, I guess. You're wasting 4 mana to set up for a future game, which is fine in a sense. You might have to throw game 1 in order to have a really good game 2, game 3, which could be interesting. Giant Fan. Move a counter from one permanent onto another. If the second permanent refers to any kind of counter, the move counter becomes one of those counters. Otherwise, it's a +1/+1. So you could move a +1/+1 counter onto Dark Depths, and it becomes an ice counter, is what I'm getting from this, right? Or you could move a counter from Dark Depths onto a creature, and it becomes a +1/+1 counter. Or, it could become whatever sort of counter you're working with. I think that's fine. I think this could be legal. Um, I definitely just make sure that the ruling is well understood. But I mean, there's probably something interesting you can do with it. Paper Tiger could be legal. Bureaucracy, when a player. Okay, so. Uh, that player performs all actions in the sequence of previously. Uh, okay, so basically, you have to play your turn. You have to go untap, upkeep, draw. And if you play that out of order at all or anything like that, they discard their hand. And you sacrifice bureaucracy. Um, I don't even think it would really be good. Just make sure that everybody understands that's how it works. Where, if you draw before untapping, you discard your hand. I think that's fine. It just catches players who are new, which kind of sucks, but they'll learn. Scissors Lizards could be legal. Once more with feeling, exile all permanents and all cards from all graveyard. Each player shuffles their hand into their library, then draws 7 cards. Each player's life total becomes 10. Exile once more with feeling, and a deck can only have one card named once more with feeling. So, um, it restarts the game, which is a little bit annoying. Um, but even then, you can only have one. I think it's fine. I think, especially because you then have to exile it, so it's out for the game. It's annoying, but I mean, like, if Lich's Mirror can just bring you back to life and whatever, it's really not that different as far as I see it. Um, Jalum Grifter, you pay 1 in a red, shuffle it and 2 basic lands you control face down. Target opponent chooses one of those cards. Turn the card face up. If they chose Grifter, destroy it. Otherwise, destroy target permanent. In a commander-like format, this could be your commander. And then the thing you could do is, if your opponent has a threatening permanent, then you agree with like a second opponent and be like, hey, I'm going to tap my Grifter. These 2 are the lands. Choose one of the lands so I can destroy their consecrated sphinx or whatever. You know. So I think it could be interesting in a format like that. I think it's legal. It should be legal. Spark Fiend, when it enters, roll 2 6-sided die. If you rolled 2, 3, or 12, sacrifice it. If you rolled 7 or 11, don't roll dice for Spark Fiend during any of your following turns. If you rolled any other total, note the total. At the beginning of your upkeep, roll 2 die. If you rolled 7, sacrifice Spark Fiend. If you roll the noted total, don't roll dice for Spark Fiend during any of your following upkeeps. Otherwise, do nothing. Sure, that's a lot of text, and it's a little bit annoying. However, it's just a 5 mana 5/6. I think it could be legal. Um, it's a 5 mana 5/6 with downside. Ow. Whenever a creature deals damage to a player, that player must say ow for once for each permanent named ow. If that player doesn't, ow deals 1 damage to them. Here's the interesting thing you could do is if you could use like Opalescence to make ow into a creature. Then if an opponent doesn't say ow to ow dealing damage to them, they have to say ow again, or else ow deals more damage. I think that could be funny. And this could just be an interesting catch in like Spellslinger decks that do like, the whenever you cast a spell, this creature deals 1 damage. It deals 2 damage unless they say ow. So I think it could be a little bit interesting, a little bit annoying, but overall could be legal. The Ultimate Nightmare of Wizards of the Coast customer service deals X damage to Y target creatures and Z target players or planeswalkers. I think it could be legal. It just spreads damage interestingly. X could be 3, Y could be 2, Z could be 1. So you deal 3 damage to 2 creatures and 1 player for a total of 8 mana. I think it's pretty fair. Maybe a little bit underpowered even. Whenever a player casts a spell that targets a single player, each player rolls a six-sided die. Change the target of that spell to the player with the lowest result. Reroll to break ties if necessary. Um, so a player tries to bolt you. Each player rolls die. Whoever has the lowest roll gets bolted. I think that's pretty fair. I don't really see any like general problems with it. I think this could just be legal. Handcuffs. As handcuffs enters, choose a player. When the chosen player's hands are touching each other, sacrifice handcuffs, and that player sacrifice 3 permanents. It's annoying. Um, however, we have things like what Hex. I think Hex lets you destroy like 6 creatures or something. Okay, so Hex is 1 more mana, lets you destroy 6 creatures. So I think kind of fair. However, here's another thing I'm trying to get around, right? Where theoretically, if a player only has one hand, handcuffs doesn't work. You know, some of the dexterity is not even dexterity based, just like things that don't quite work. And I guess you could say the same where, like, well, you know, what if a mute person's playing and they can't say ow? And it's like, that is a tough scenario. Um, so it's kind of interesting trying to figure out how to make some of this work, but I just don't I don't it doesn't really seem fun to make players keep their hands together. I just wouldn't legalize it, honestly. Urza Science Fair project. It's a 6 mana 4/4. You pay 2, roll a dice, and it gets the indicated result. So it either gets -2/-2, prevent all damage it would deal, vigilance, first strike, flying, or +2/+2. It's kind of underpowered. It's not really that good. It could be legal. Landfill. Choose a land type. Exile all lands you control of that type. Drop those cards one at a time onto the playing area from at least a height of 1 foot. Destroy each permanent completely covered by those cards. Then return the cards you dropped to the battlefield tapped. So you could say, like, mountains. I'm going to take mountains, and then if I have 10 mountains, I drop them on my opponent's side of the field, and each card that's completely covered gets destroyed. Then I get all my mountains back. It is a little bit annoying, I would say, because technically you could just destroy all your opponent's lands by dropping it on their land base, but eh, eh. It also kind of like incentivizes your opponent to spread their board apart and shit. You know, so like their creatures will be in the left corner and the right corner and kind of spread across the board, and their lands could be all over because then it's harder to completely cover a card. Um, but even then, like it doesn't really seem completely busted, just kind of strange and annoying. But is it any more weird and annoying than like Goblin Game? To that, I would say probably not. Urza's Contact Lenses. 0 mana artifact, enters tapped. Doesn't untap during your untap steps. If it's untapped, all players play with their hands revealed. Clap your hands twice. You can tap or untap Urza's Contact Lenses. I think this is fine. I mean, so every player gets to see each other's hands. Sure, it's a 0 cost artifact, so that could be somewhat like exploitable, but I think overall it's pretty fair. Um, you know, it just lets each player see each other's hands, gives more information to everybody, which I just think is always interesting. Bronze Calendar makes spells you cast cost 1 less. You must speak in a voice other than your normal voice. If you speak in your normal voice, sacrifice Bronze Calendar. Seems fair. I mean, speaking in a non-normal voice could be kind of annoying, but even then, it's just a 4 mana reduced by 1. So I wouldn't really be too worried about it being too strong. Common Courtesy. Whenever a player casts a spell without asking permission while casting it, counter that spell. When a player asks you permission to cast a spell and you refuse, counter that spell and sacrifice Common Courtesy. This is annoying because it's basically pay the one but different. All right, every time they want to cast a spell, they have to be like, "Hey, may I please cast Lightning Bolt?" And if you say no, you counter it and sacrifice it. Or if you say yes, they just get to cast Lightning Bolt. I think a counterspell that kind of sits on the board is kind of oppressive and annoying, but I'm not really sure if it would honestly be that overpowered, besides the fact that they have to remember to, like, ask to cast their spells. I think it's fine. I think we could legalize it. Um, Hungry, Hungry Heifer. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can remove a counter from a permanent you control. If you don't sacrifice Hungry, Hungry Heifer, it's a 3/3 for 3. It's fair. It's a 3/3 for 3 with downside. It's fair. Sex Appeal prevents the next 3 damage that would be dealt this turn to any number of targets divided as you control. If there are more people in the room of a different gender than you, as you cast the spell, prevent the next 6 damage this way instead. I just don't think this would work in this day and age. Because then you have to, like, go around and, like, ask people, and I feel like that's just, like, weird and awkward, and I just want to avoid it, so I'm going to say no. Checks and balances. Cast the spell only if there are 3 more players in the game. Whenever a player casts a spell, each of that player's opponents may discard a card. If they do, counter that spell. So you want to play Crater Hoof, each of your opponents could just, they have to, all three have to discard a card to counter it. I think that's fair. I think this could be a really interesting, like, commander card. Given that it's a multiplayer format, theoretically, I think this card just legal. I think it's interesting. I think it's cool. Clam Session. When it enters, choose a word. At the beginning of your upkeep, you must sing at least 6 words of a song that include the word. If you don't, sacrifice Clam Session, and you can't repeat a song. It's a little strange, but I mean, you choose, like, Baby or something. They say it in the movie Baby Driver, but, like, all the songs are about you then. So you just sing 6 words of a song at the beginning of your upkeep, and then it's a 3-mana 2/5. Seems pretty fair to me. Flock of Rabid Sheep. X green green, flip X coins. For each flip you win, create a 2/2 green sheep token named Rabid Sheep. That's fair. It just creates... It's not even like you're guaranteed to create X 2/2s. You might create X 2s, you'll probably create half X 2/2s. So, you pay 4 mana for it, and you're probably guaranteed, like, 1. You pay 6 mana for it, you might get 2. Sure, you could get more, but it's a coin flip every time. So I think it could be legal. Jumbo Imp. When it enters, roll a 6-sided die. Enters with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the result. Beginning of your upkeep, roll a 6-sided die. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the result. Beginning of your end step, roll a 6-sided die and remove that number of counters. I think it's fine. So you pay 3. It enters as a 6/6. Let's just say you high rolled, right? And then at the beginning of your upkeep, not even. It comes as a 6/6, and then at the beginning of your end step, you roll. It goes down to, like, a 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, you roll. It goes up to, like, a 4/4, and it just keeps going up and down. I think it could be fair. There are ways to re-roll dice that I think could help with it, but even then, like, it's just kind of meh. Charm School. When it enters, choose a color and balance Charm School on your head. Prevent all damage that will be dealt to you by sources of the chosen color. When it falls off your head, sacrifice Charm School. So you just, like, kill any burn strategies or, green creatures or something like that by balancing it on your head. I had this in one of my uncommander decks that was based around hats, because you could put Charm School on your head and it just wouldn't fall off because you put your hat on top. I do think that's an interesting workaround that, could break it, but even then, it's a removable enchantment. I think it's fine. I would legalize it. Gerrymandering. Exile all lands. Give each player a number of those cards chosen at random equal the number of those cards the player controlled. Each player returns those cards to the battlefield under their control. So you exile all lands. Let's just say, like, you had 5 lands, an opponent has 6 lands, 4 lands, 5 lands, whatever. And then you just divide them by, however many lands you started with. So if you had 5 lands, you end up with 5 lands, but you'll probably end up with different lands. I think this is interesting because you could either get lands that you can't really use, or, if your opponent just played Gaia's Cradle, you play Gerrymandering, now some other player could have Gaia's Cradle, and sure, they still have it, it's still strong, but if their deck is less built around creatures, it's going to be a little bit less good. So I think it could be legal. Clam I Am, if you roll a 3 on a 6-sided die, you can re-roll that die. That could just be legal. Prismatic Wardrobe. Destroy target non-artifact, non-land permanent that doesn't share a color with clothing worn by its controller. So, if your opponent's playing a blue deck, and they're not wearing blue, this is just a 1-mana kill something. Sure, it's a little bit gimmicky, and I guess you're probably gonna have that, actually, my underwear is blue situation or whatever. But I think it's kind of fair, honestly. It doesn't do anything that game breaking. I think it would be a staple, no doubt, but look at this, and you look at Swords to Plowshares. I think I'd rather have a Swords to Plowshares to, or exile a creature. And sure, this could hit enchantments and, artifact. No, not even artifacts. This could hit enchantments. This could hit creatures. That's it. I think you'd just rather a Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, because then you can at least get around Indestructible. Goblin Bookie, it's a 1 red, and tap it, reflip any coin or reroll any die. Could just be legal. When Lexivore deals damage to a player, destroy target permanent other than Lexivore with the most lines of text in its text box. I mean, that could just kill your shit too, so I'd say it's fair. Counting lines of text is a little bit annoying, but, I mean, it's not that hard. Clay Pigeon, you pay 1, throw Clay Pigeon into the air at least 2 feet above your head while seated. If you catch Clay Pigeon with one hand, prevent all damage a source of your control would deal to you this turn, and tap Clay Pigeon. Otherwise, sacrifice it. I don't want to fuck with some of the dexterity-based shit, so I'm going to say this is not legal. I don't think it would be broken either way, but I don't want to mess with that. Mesa Chicken, stand up, flap your arms, click like a chicken. Mesa Chicken gains flying until end of turn. Okay, so either it's a 2/2 flyer, which is just kind of fine by itself, or it's just a regular 2/2. I think that avoiding the dexterity-based stuff is kind of important, but even if people don't... How are you playing Magic without arms, anyway? Either way, you cluck like a I think this could be legal, because it's not good either way. Just try your best, is my... That's how I would put it. And I sound mean for that, but I can't say no to every dexterity-based card, but as long as you at least have 1 arm, and if you have no arms, it's not that I don't welcome you to the Magic space, it's that, I want to know how you're playing, because usually you need some, well, unless you're playing with your feet, that'd be kind of cool. That would be interesting, but then you just flap your legs, I guess. Legal. Let's just say legal. At the beginning of your upkeep, roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 6, sacrifice chicken egg and create a 4/4 red giant bird token. Legal. Just legalize chicken egg. It's pretty much fine. At the beginning of your upkeep, roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 1, sacrifice crazy cow and deals 3 damage to each creature and each player. This could just be legal. I mean, it doesn't really do all that much. Denied. Choose a card name, then target player's controller reveals their hand. If a card with the chosen name is revealed this way, counter that spell. Huh? What? Choose a card name. Oh, okay. So if your opponent plays Lightning Bolt, you play Denied, and then you try and name a card in your hand, and if you name correctly, then you get to counter that Lightning Bolt. I think that's legal. It's not great, but it could be legal. Double play. Choose another player, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Beginning of the first upkeep in your next game with that player, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Okay, so if we're saying this is a best of 3 and we can confine this ability to the best of 3, I think it's fine because then you can just set up for your future game. But if this is not a best of 3 and it's a best of 1, I really don't want abilities to carry over. So I would say no then. I guess we'd really need to like hammer out what is this format? Is this a commander thing? Is this a best of 3? Do we have sideboards? How is all this working? Organ Harvest. Your team can sacrifice any number of creatures. For each creature sacrificed this way, you add black. Is this a, two-headed giant format? Because then Organ Harvest would make sense. Either way, I think Organ Harvest could be legal. Sorry. Before any player casts a spell with the same name as a card in their graveyard, that player may say sorry. If they don't, any other player may say sorry as the spell is being cast. Whenever another player says sorry this way, counter that spell. Whenever a player says sorry at any time, sorry deals 2 damage to that player. Again, would be really good for the Mind Skinner. So you pay 2 life every time, you lose 2 life every time you cast a spell that has the same name as a card in any graveyard. Yeah, I think it could just be legal. So your opponent plays their second lightning bolt or whatever. If they don't say sorry, they lose 2 life. If they say sorry, they lose 2 life and cast it. If they don't say sorry, you say sorry and counter it. So it just kind of evens out. I think it's interesting. Spatula of the Ages. Sacrifice it. Put a silver bordered or acorn permanent from your hand onto the battlefield. Okay. So you could cheat in something like really big, but even then, I haven't really seen too many creatures that are quite unfair. And even then, it's 8 mana worth of investment. It's just Timmy, but worse. Get a life. Target player and each of that player's teammates exchange life totals. So I guess if this is a 2-headed giant type format, then you just exchange life with your teammate. If you're at 5 life, but you have a better hand, maybe you keep it. Or if you have like a Necropotent, Skrizzle brand, whatever, you exchange life to get more triggers or whatever. Not triggers, activations, whatever. Knight of the Hokey Pokey. You do the Hokey Pokey, prevent all damage a source of your choice would deal to the Knight of the Hokey Pokey this turn. It's hard to remove, but then it's just a 2-mana 2/2 first striker. I think it could be legal. If we're saying that the chicken dance is okay, we'll say that this is okay. I think dancing is fine, but, having to, like, catch things, having to, like, not, like, push, but, like, I think there's a card that makes you arm wrestle. I'm still 50-50 on that. We'll have to see. Volrath's Motion Sensor. When it enters, choose one of target player's hands. That player balances Motion Sensor on the back of their hand. When it falls off, sacrifice Volrath's Motion Sensor, and enchanted player loses 3 life. This is hard because I said earlier that we would not let handcuffs work because, having to stick hands together sucks. However, at best, it's a 1 mana that player loses 3 life. That's all it does, basically. So I think it's legal, because even then, it's just kind of bad. Unless you have, like, a recast. Loris of the Dream Den recasting this every turn. Ooh, that could be a little bit annoying, but even then, it's, like, not that bad. Deadhead. Pay 0, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only if an opponent isn't touching their hand of cards. So if they put their hand down, whether to go do something or anything like that, you can just get it back for free. I think that could be fine. It punishes your opponent for making mistakes like that. It's a little bit annoying, but even then, it's just a 3/3. I think you're good. Legalize it. Foul Play. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a bird with base power and toughness 1/1. This is Witness Protection, but worse. Legalize it. Goblin Bowling Team. If Goblin Bowling Team would deal damage to a permanent or player, deals that much damage plus a roll of a 6-sided die instead. Either way, it could get blocked by a 1/1 and die. Sure, it's going to kill that 1/1 because, it deals that 6-sided die damage too. But I think it just doesn't really do enough, so legalize it. Herloon Wrangler has Denim Walk. This creature can't be blocked as long as defending player is wearing denim. Yeah, that's gimmicky, but a 3-mana 2/2 that can't be blocked really isn't that much to cry about. Legalize it. Team Spirit. Creatures target players' team controls get +1/+1 until end of turn. So it bumps you and your opponent's creatures. However, your opponent isn't attacking, or not your opponent, and your teammates' creatures. But your teammate probably won't be attacking the same turn you are. So unless you're using this, to help block, it's just kind of meh. I think you could legalize it. Free range chicken. Roll 2 6-sided die. If both results are the same, free range chicken gets +X, where X is the result. If the totals are equal to any number total you've rolled this turn, sacrifice it. So it could be legal. It's just kind of gimmicky. Gosban Ogress. When it enters, if one player has won more Magic games that day than any other player, that player gains control of Gosban Ogress. Keeping track of Magic games, I just don't think it's too much outside the game. You can step up from the table and do a little dance to give your creature, indestructible or whatever. I think that's fine. But having to keep track, like, oh, I won 5 games today, I won 4 games today, whatever. I just don't like that. So I would say don't legalize it. Double dip. Choose another player. You gain 5 life. At the beginning of the first upkeep at your next game with that player, you gain 5 life. Again, this only really works in like a best of 3 format, and even then, 5 mana to gain 5 life is just not good. And even if you then start with 5 more life the next game, doesn't matter. It's just not good. We have Providence puts your life total to 26. If you reveal it in your opening hand, it's just bad. You could legalize it if it's a best of 3 format, but even then, it just sucks. Elvish Impersonator enters, roll a 6-sided die. Its base power becomes equal to the first result, and its toughness is equal to the second result. This could be legal. My only problem is it's an Elvish Impersonator. Why is it an elf? I don't like that. I don't like that its creature type is elves. Yeah. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me think about that real quick. Hold on. Okay, so on second thought, its type is elves. So this will not go in any elf deck because its type is an elf. It's elves. Which is just funny, but yeah, it could be legal either way. Gus enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each Magic game you have lost to one of your opponents since you last won a game against them. I don't want to keep track of games, so I'm going to say no. As Temp of the Dam enters, roll a 6-sided die. It enters with a number of funk counters on it equal to the result. Beginning of your next upkeep, remove a funk counter from Temp of the Damned. If you can't, you sacrifice it. So it's just a 3-mana 3/3 with downsides. Legalize it. Poltergeist. When Poltergeist dies, you roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 1, sacrifice. Whenever a creature dies, roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 1, sacrifice Poltergeist. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's just a 3-mana 1/1 flyer with Necrosynthesis already on it, basically. It's fine. You could just legalize that. Double Deal. Choose another player. Double Deal deals 3 damage to that player. And at the beginning of the next game with that player, Double Deal deals 3 damage to that player. Boring. Again, only works in best of 3, so I'm just going to say no. Choose another player. Look at that player's hand and choose a card other than a basic land from it. At the beginning of it's another one of these. So yeah, I would just say only in a best of 3. I'm kind of bored of these, honestly. This is the same thing, but drawing 2 cards. Growth Spurt. I think Growth Spurt's the last card. Roll a 6-sided die. Target creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is the result. Could be legalized. And that is it. Alright, so as you could see, a lot of these cards are either basically just cards that are fair enough to be legal, or just fair enough to be legal. I mean, a lot of these in a format where unsets were legal probably wouldn't even really be that good. Um, because what's growth spurt compared to like scale up? Question mark. Scale up's pretty good. Either way, what I'm saying is, I think it would be really interesting to build more decks in a theoretical format where un and playtest cards are legal, because a lot of them are pretty fun looking. As you can tell, it really doesn't seem that unbalanced so far, right? A lot of these cards seem like just regular cards at this point. But anywho, this has been MTG Man. Let me know, what should I cover next? Should I cover Unfinity's illegal cards, the unstable what else is there? It's because unglued, boo. Unglued, unhinged, unstable, unsanctioned, Unfinity, and then there's also playtest. There's playtest cards from Mystery Boosters. There's Mystery Booster 2, which has a whole new set of playtest cards that I could look over. Stone Drake, whatever. Or there's also the unknown event cards. If I remember correctly, this was MagicCon Philly in 2023. All these cards were in an event. And I've looked at some of them. Some of them are interesting. There's some interesting references. So let me know in the comments, do you think that this could just be a thing? Do you think this is fair? Did I misread any of these cards? Just let me know, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace, y'all.